Yo, JD here, to Limitless, and as you can see, this is another AOR throwback, and this race here was probably one of the most eventful, most intense races that I've ever been in, and maybe a little bit confused by a title, learn from experiences, because you know I like my unusual titles, and this race is probably the race I learned the most about building my racecraft, consistency, being aggressive. I learned so many things from this race, and I'm glad I actually had this result, what actually happened at the end of this race. I'm glad this race turned out how it did, because without this was before I had my first win as well. Without this, I don't think I would have got my first win, because I wouldn't have learned the things that I would have done from this race. And that's what I always try and do when I go into league races, or any race really. I always try and improve on one thing, or try and take the positives out of the race. If it was consistency, if it was qualifying pace, it was anything I can take out at all, I always just try and build on it for next race. And that's a piece of advice really that I give to everyone. If you want to keep improving, just take note of things you achieved in your last race. Even if it's a smallest thing, if you just improve your lap time slightly, if you were just a little bit more consistent, if you beat a certain person that you've been looking to beat, or got closer, or not even beating them but just got closer. And that's what I did, because as I said in my previous videos, with Noble, Matty G being the two main guides in the game, just getting within certain seconds of them felt like a race win to me, to be honest. And as you can see here, we're in second place at the moment after qualifying third with a decent lap. I'm right behind Noble here, and I remember for this race I did so much practice this race. I think I probably did almost like 2 weeks of advance worth into practice, which puts a lot of pressure on you. And as I said in my previous video, it's not always the best thing really to do, is to practice that much, because you just don't feel, as I said in my last video, as excited to actually do the track, or just feel 100% focused really, because you've just done it so much. It just feels like it's an effort really to just keep doing the track, and it just gets boring after a while. And I think that's really important, not to be bored of a track, because you just won't really focus as much, or be a drive to your maximum potential. You'll be able to see here in the next few corners, one error in a race can really just destroy a race, and this is the error here. I just went in a bit too deep, didn't get hit or anything. Now that's allowed Noble to get away. Matty G's managed to get the switch back on me, but this is still recoverable at this point. I remember this moment, I was a bit indecisive. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, if I wanted to overtake him. And you can see here, this is a bit of a half move, so make a little bit of contact with him, and that leaves the door open for Randy on the inside. And Randy, being the aggressive driver that he is, or it wasn't really even aggressive there, it was just me leaving the door open. I was so annoyed at myself. I remember on the gamer chat there, I was just going a little bit off because of that mistake. And that's something I've learnt as well in races, when things aren't going your way, is to not really let it out too much in game chat, because that only just gives the advantage to other players, because they know you've got rattled. You're just going to make more mistakes, and you just got to be more focused. And I've just learned, after making mistakes like that, or things that just don't go away in the heat of the moment, it's better to just keep it to yourself. And now I just don't say anything at all, because it's not going to achieve anything. It's just going to be, as I said, giving the advantage more psychological wise to the actual other drivers. They feel that you're not going to be driving, or you're going to be driving the red mist. But we keep our composure after the next couple of laps. We managed to pass Randy again, but it looks like Noble is slowly starting to pull away at the moment. But we know we've got the pace around here. At this point in the game, this was my fastest track, other than obviously Korea, Spa and Suzuka. But at this moment, when I was doing this practice, Silverstone was definitely the track that I had the most pace on, and I knew the strategy off by heart. I was pitting a lot later than everyone else, as everyone else, as you can see, has already pitted before this point. But just going back to mainly the title video, learning from experiences, I think from every race you should really just try and aim for something for next race. So if there's something you didn't do quite right, for me personally at this moment, when I was at this stage in my league racing, I was always looking to improve. And coming into this, I just wasn't the most consistent driver. I actually had the pace, the raw pace. I knew I could do it, but I hadn't had my first win yet, so that was something on my list that I needed to do. I just needed to be more consistent and really just not hold back, because sometimes I was quite cautious really. And if you've seen from F1 2014 or any of my later F1 2013 where I was in the Red Bull and the next season, quite a few people comment, I've seen in videos where people think I'm too aggressive or unfair sometimes in some races or at some moments. But looking back on this, and if you look at any races before this, I was never like that, and I feel it's really down to actually this race that has really made me be more aggressive, because I think I've touched on this in the previous video as well in terms of overtaking. I think you really do need to be aggressive, because not only it gives you more confidence and actually allows you to pass people and actually potentially do better races, it makes other drivers know, or lets other drivers know, that you're not just going to sit back until it's a clear DRS opportunity to something overtake. If that person leaves a gap, that you'll actually go for it, and then in theory that's actually going to make the other drivers a bit more nervous when you're behind them, make them make more mistakes, and that's what you want. That's what you want if you want to be successful in races. And to be honest, at the time I was really not having a good time, because Randy probably is one of the best drivers in racecraft and actual wheel to wheel. He is so aggressive, but obviously he's fair when he's aggressive, but he's someone who doesn't give up. And before this race, I wasn't someone who gives up, because I'm not that kind of person or driver. I'm very, very competitive, and I hate losing. I always want to do the best I can do, so giving up is not really something I do too often. But I was definitely a lot more cautious and just a lot more respectful of other drivers. And I'm not saying you should disrespect other drivers or hit them off the track or anything like that. That's obviously, you want to do it cleanly, you want to do clean racing, but you've got to be aggressive and you've got to sometimes push the boat out a little bit. And from this race, as you can see Randy here, he's not giving up. He's acting like he's pretty much in the lead of this race every single lap. And to be honest, I've got to thank him for this, because if he hadn't done this or hadn't had a race at this, he wouldn't really show me what you really need to do in terms of racing wheel to wheel with someone. And I never had been this aggressive in the past before. And from this race onwards, you can watch my videos after this race, especially in the 2013 season in Red Bull, and obviously F1 2014. You can see how aggressive I am when I overtake people. I don't really try and stick around people for too long, and I try and do it in the most clean way possible. And I feel like I'm a clean driver. I feel like I'm quite a hard but fair driver, and that's gives you a reputation. And as I said, it makes other drivers more nervous, and it just gives you more confidence and more power over other drivers. And that's what it feels like to me, because I know when you come across drivers who you know are just going to move out of the way for you, or not really go defend hard, then you'll just go overtake them, go down the inside. You'll go take more chances because you know that they're just going to move out of the way. And at the end of the day, I said it before, speed isn't everything. I believe it's consistency, racecraft, and speed as well. It's a combination of them three things. And if you don't have them three things, then it's going to be very, very hard for you to actually win a race. And as you can see here, we're a little bit of lag spike, but that's why Noble's so good and Matty G are so good and people like that, because they've got those three things. They're aggressive, they're clinical, they're smart in the strategy, and obviously they've got the pace and the consistency, and they don't give up. They don't give up positions easily. Look, if you just watch one of Noble's videos and Matty G's videos, I can't remember the last time when someone cruised up behind them and they just let them pass without a fight or battle. It just doesn't happen at all, and that's why they're so successful and won so many races and championships, is because of that. And that's what I've taken away from drivers like them, and particularly Randy in this race. His racecraft, you can see it's clean, it's fair, it's hard and aggressive, but it's what you need to be. And ever since this race, I just said to myself I was going to be a lot more aggressive than I had been. But moving on to this race, you may not notice, or may have noticed, it's not going fantastic for me because I just can't get past Randy. His car is literally as wide as the track at the moment, and I remember just being in this race, I was just so sick and tired of just seeing his car. It was quite a difficult sight to see. Obviously practicing as much as I did for this race, pretty much I would have to say definitely more than a week worth in advance, if I'm being completely honest. And yeah, it hurt quite a bit because it's just difficult when you know that if you do everything right, then you know you've got a really good chance of it. But sometimes things just don't work out, and as I said for the title of this video, you just gotta learn from moments of this. If I hadn't made that mistake on that turn 3, or had been a bit more aggressive in certain situations, I wouldn't be in this position. I wouldn't be behind him. Pretty much my race being ruined at the moment. So that's something I said to myself, I'm just going to take away for future races, and I believe I've learnt from it. And if you look at my other races, I'm quite a bit of a different driver to what I am in this one. And at the moment, I think we come up behind someone who's pitted quite a while before us. And you can see in the map there, look at the lead that Noble and Matty G have got. I think it's actually Matty G who's actually got into the lead, as the Constant, I think, is on a lot older tyres than us at the moment. Managed to just navigate our way past him. You can see the lead, and I won't really spoil it if you haven't seen it in the video, but you just keep an eye on that lead and the gap that they got. You can see it's quite a big gap behind we are at the moment. And if you didn't know, if you didn't race me in this game, this was a track that I really just loved, and I'd probably done over 1,000 laps, as Matty G said around here. I probably did do, honestly, about over 1,000 laps around here. And it was, with me, qualifying pace or qualifying laps are not really my speciality. I've never ever really been an amazing qualifier. Now and again I do really good laps, which you would do if you play the game as much as we do, and the amount of practice that you do, of course you go do good laps. And if you're just good at the game, now and again you will do good laps. But qualifying, I'm not going to be the person who gets the most poles in the season or most fastest laps. As I said in Ask FM when someone asked me, my consistency is something I feel is the major strong point, and without consistency you can't win races at all. Of course you can get pole positions with raw speed, and pole position is great, it sets you up for the race, but for me, when I go into league races, just starting in the top 5 really is all I want to do. If I can start in the top 5, then you've got a good chance of actually winning the race because of DRS, how the slipstream works. Starting in top 5 gives you a chance. I think outside top 5 it's going to be a little bit more difficult, because you're going to have to get through traffic, and a lot of more potential things can happen. It could be contact, a lot of things can happen. But yeah, starting in the top 5 for me, as long as you're consistent and just keep it neat and tidy in the first lap, then I always feel if I'm driving my best, or I'm driving really well, then I've got a good chance of getting a podium or even a win. But as you can see now, we've managed to finally get past Randy, and we're just hoping, I was just praying on this DRS straight that he would not get past us again, but it doesn't look like it. Looks like he's half a second behind, so it doesn't look like he's going to get us down this straight. But we've got Matty G in front of us here. I think Noble is actually pitting. You can see now it's slowly starting to rain, and I practiced both dry and wet, so I actually knew pretty much exactly when to pit, how many laps later you should go. As soon as it starts raining, I knew you had to go about 3 or 4 laps later than what it is, even though your tyres would be absolutely dead. Having a lap fresher tyres in this game and F1 2014 was a huge advantage. It's absolutely massive. 2012 really wasn't that much of the case, on like prime tyres especially. Having a lap 2 freshers younger or anything doesn't really give you any more that much pace. Only really at the end of a stint you really punish for it. But on this game, it definitely seems to be over the course of, if you pit about 2 laps or a lap earlier than someone else, you will have at least a couple or even a few tenths advantage over someone else. And even if you're driving exactly the same, you're not making mistakes. So like me, Matty G for example, you go be quicker regardless, even if you're driving pretty much on the same speed. And you can see here we're pushing very, very hard, and at this point I still believed I could win this race, because I knew I was on the fresher tyres out of everyone. I knew I had the fresher tyres, and I knew how much of an advantage they were, and I knew if I had clear air and I could really just push, then it's not out of the question. We still got 9 laps of this race to go. It's only 3 seconds in front, but the issue is that the undercut here is quite big as Matty G pits, so we are not we're not going to pit this lap, because I knew the only chance I had of winning this race is having fresher tyres. Even though the undercut, I knew I would just have to push at absolute hell as soon as I got on the wet tyres. Because if I pitted then at the same time as him, with Matt being the driver that he is, even though I felt like I had more pace than him around here, it wouldn't have been enough really to close in. It may have been maybe a couple of attempts, or at best maybe a few attempts a lap closing in, but with about 9 or 8 laps to go, then the caliber of driver that Matt is, and Noble obviously, you're not going to close those people down, so you really just got to take a risk in this situation. And I took the risk because I went into this race to try and win it, and to be honest, me not winning this race, for me, just wasn't good enough. I wanted to win this race so badly, and this, as I said, was before I won my first Spa race, which was actually the race after this. So I was so hungry to win my first race in AOR F1. I managed to do it in GP2. My first 2 races, I won both my races. I've won races in Tyrrell League. I've won the championships in Tyrrell, the leagues that I've done. But this is the one with this caliber of drivers in here. Probably arguably being the most competitive league racing grid there's ever been on an F1 game. I was so hungry to do it, and I was so desperate to do it here at Silverstone, which is, I thought for me, was my best track and my home track in the game. But you can see now we're on the intermediate tyres, and we have got about 2 lap fresher tyres than Randy, about 3 lap fresher tyres than Noble. I believe he pitted very early, so they didn't know the strategy. And I said it before, strategy sometimes is what wins you the race, and that's what really won it for me at Spa, obviously with the consistency and the speed obviously as well. Having that strategy made me get out of traffic, and it really just gave me the clean air to really push. And you can see now we've got past Randy, which was absolutely crucial, and that was a must move. Like, if I had stayed behind him, it could have been potentially the next 6 laps battling with Randy again. I wouldn't be able to catch Noble, but you can see Matty G, I'd say he's got about a 5-second lead in us at the moment. So 6 laps to go, you'd think that would be completely over. We have got a lap fresher tyres, and having practiced in the rain, I was quite confident that I could potentially still close in him, as we absolutely nail these corners here. Staying in 5th gear, which was a preference of mine that no one else seems to do, really just helps you carry the momentum of this corner. But we're going to go round the outside, because at this point been slightly pushed a little bit, and we did go off the track there. But I remember at the time I thought I got slightly pushed a little bit, and I thought I was so hungry. To be honest, I just really didn't care, because all I wanted to do was just win this race. And let's see what the gap is now to Matty G. It's 3.9 seconds, so the undercut was not actually that big. And we've got 5 laps to go as well, and you'll be able to see over the next coming laps of what our pace really is around here, our true pace. And this is me pretty much 100% on my game at the moment in terms of pace. I've never really... Now and again, obviously races after this, I feel I've driven as well as this at times, but you'll be able to see over the next few laps of how much we are actually going to gain on him. It's absolutely insane. Obviously due to me having the fresher tyres, but obviously having the practice and what I did around this track, without it I would not have been nowhere near as confident as I was in this. And you'll be able to see soon what the gap is. And you can see coming across the line now, 4 laps to go, it's 3.5 seconds, so we didn't gain too much. We gained 4 tenths though, which is still quite a decent gap, and hopefully we'll be able to see next lap of what we can do. Coming across the line here with 3 laps to go, and you can see visually on the map 2.8 seconds, so we have just gained a lot of time. And you can see in this next lap with 2 laps now to go, 2.3, so we gained another 4 tenths or so on that lap. Let's see what it is, and you can see how close we are now, and I was pushing so hard, and you can see there how much of the runoff we were actually using on that last corner. It's 1.6 seconds, and I thought at this point that I could do this. I thought this is my chance that I could do it, but on this lap, Matty G put in a really good lap, and we lost a little speed, so we actually lost 4 tenths on our previous lap. And I think we're going to stay on board to the end of the race now. It's 1.4 seconds, and you can look at the gap behind us. It's 7.4 seconds. Well, Randy is behind Matty G, so that's about 5 and a bit seconds, or 6 seconds he is behind us. So that we pulled a huge amount of time. And I believe Noble, since he pitted like 3 laps earlier, and his tyres have just completely gone. They're pretty much on the rims at the moment. And we can see the gap now. We're only getting just a tenth, and we are pushing so hard. I remember this so well that I literally was trying to save my curves for the end of this straight. And because I just wanted this so badly. You can see our tyres, how much we've pushed. Our tyres are not in very good condition. So if our tyres are not in good condition, you can see Matty G's tyres are not going to be good. And you can see now we're using pretty much all the maximum of the track we could do. And coming through this Maggots and Beckett section, which is my favourite section on any F1 game. I absolutely love these corners so much. We're going to stay in 5th gear, which most people go down to 4th. But for me, just holding that momentum for that corner gives you such a big advantage. And you can see now we've gained about 5/10 of a second coming to this. And at this point, I knew it was over now. Unless he made a mistake coming to this last corner, it was pretty much game, set and match for Matt G. And doesn't make any mistake there. We're trying desperately to try and get up behind him, but end of the day, we made that mistake that cost us the race. But hope you enjoyed this race, because this is one of my most memorable races that I've ever done. Let me know what race you want to see next. I'm maybe thinking career of my next race yet. But I'll keep doing these videos. Thank you for the support and all my videos you have been recently. It's been amazing. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.